All right, so we're live. We just started streaming on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And by the way, Alejandra, we have quite, let's say, a loyal audience, really. Like there is some audience who are particularly waiting for these sessions. And this particular series of the deep dive into the PMBOK 8, which we launched with Rusbeh. Okay, so it was, I think, Rusbeh's idea. Oh, Laura is in.
Yes.
Okay, Laura, hi.
Hi, hello.
Hey, so we have Alejandra, we have Daniel, and you're perfectly on time. We just went live right now. Do you hear us, Laura?
Hi, hello.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good. So I was saying that we just went live like less than a minute ago. Okay, and we have Alejandra with us. We have Daniel, my co-host, and it's nice having you. Okay, so I was telling Alejandra that actually we have quite faithful audience, okay? Because really they keep waiting for our live sessions, and I noticed that even the replay is quite popular. So thousands of people do watch the replay later on because some people cannot make it because of the working time or different time zones, like people in the United States. But then later on they watch the this live. So we have kicked off, ladies, we have kicked off this with Rusbe. We've had the first session with Jesse Fuel. Okay, it was an interesting session, really, about an introduction about the entire PMBOK, 8. What are the changes? What happened? The structure. And last week we had a session with Mike. Very interesting one. Another one, like very interesting one. And today we look forward to having this session with you ladies. Okay, so it's going to be a ladies session today. Ladies, Alejandra, Laura. So Alejandra, you're based in the Honduras, right?
I am based in Honduras. I usually present myself as being from the five-star country in the heart of America because we are
Oh,
located just in the middle of the whole continent, and my country has like a heart shape. So
right,
that's the way I introduce myself.
right. That's great. You might wanna have like, and Laura, you're Italian, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I am half Italian and half from Czech Republic.
Oh,
And yes, and I actually work as a head of project management department in a telco company, so in telecommunication industry.
okay. I noticed you're in Prague, and but Laura Lazzarini. So I said
That's
tak mluvíš
yeah,
česky.
the surname is
Mluvíš
Italian.
česky.
Yes.
Mluvíš česky.
Mluvím česky, ano. Ano.
Dobře.
You surprised me, yeah, because Czech is not actually a language that's usually spoken or usually found.
I lived
That
I lived for 10 years in the Czech Republic, maybe 11 years.
Okay. That's so.
All
This
right.
is why
Okay.
you are fluent, right?
Plus my daughter is Czech. My daughter is like you. She's Czech. So
Okay.
so let's have an introduction about you, ladies. Like really, let's start with you, Alejandra. So if you wanna introduce yourself to the audience, like your experience, your relationship with project management, and how did you end up, being involved with PMI in general and PMBOK 8 in particular.
Okay, great. So, well, I started off my career as an architect. I studied architecture in the university, and I was very good in the organizational and the administrative classes from architecture. So I think that from there I started like thinking about structure and being methodical and working with things in order and solving problems, because architecture is the perfect combination between the technique and the hard skill and the creative side, so you can build them together. I have been for the past 15 years working in project management and digital transformation. I love to study, so I keep on getting certifications and degrees and stuff. to learn more. And the more I learn, the more I acknowledge that I don't know anything. So the more you have knowledge, the more you know that you're just, you know, in the very tip of the iceberg. So I met PMI about 13 years ago. I had a colleague, and that he was also my teacher in my master's in project management. And I started volunteering with him. Like, he came one day to my office and told me, like, hey, I'm starting off an initiative. Do you want to be part of it? And I was like, yeah, I can, you know, be a part of it. I have been learned to be a servant leader since I was very little, because my dad is a very good servant leader. So I believe a lot in volunteering. I believe a lot in giving back, in helping people, and in strengthening your community through service, because that is a way in which you can help people, you know, grow and be better. So I really, that is, I love that. And I came up to be a founder, a co-founder in my local PMI chapter in Honduras. And story, you know, anything else is story. The story started there. I fell in love with what PMI represents, the global community, the multicultural community, the opportunities to add value, the standards, all the learning, the people, you know, the people in PMI, the 80% of PMI people that are part of PMI are volunteers. So
Right.
the whole organization is supported by this leadership of service, you know. So I fell in love with that. It really connected with me and with my essence. And actually, PMBOK 8 was funny, because I know many women struggle with this, to find a place in the table, and with the imposter syndrome. And I participated in the validation for the Spanish translation of the PMBOK 7. So I signed up for regular updates from the platform. So one day I got an email like, this is the available positions. And I was like, wow, PMBOK 8. Well, I could try that. So I just applied. I didn't have any, you know, hope that I would be selected or picked in. But I got in, and I got in the right time. I think that this team was a great team. I connected with the people in this team. We worked very good. And I feel that this was my time. I have been giving back and adding value for a long time. I'm also a teacher in the university. I give classes in project management masters. And so I feel that this was my time to give back some of my experience and my consulting experience with different companies, different industries, and to see the world in a different perspective. Because I think that coming from a small country gives you some resilience that usually from other countries that are bigger or that have different cultures are not experienced. So I think that it's a really, and the one thing that I love about our team, our PMBOK team, is that we had like a little piece of the whole world. Like, everyone had a different experience from different industries, from different backgrounds. So that's the richness of this team.
I absolutely agree with this. It was a very international team, very international, very, I mean, you know, talking to the other guys, we had Gabriela before, you know, we had the other guys, really amazing. And Laura, so would you like to introduce yourself to the audience as well?
Yes, of course. I actually, as already mentioned, I work for telecommunication, but I started my path in Italy, where I actually got a degree in electronics with specialization in microelectronics. Then I worked actually quite a number of years in Italy, and then in other countries. And then I actually, now it's quite a long time that I work in Czech Republic. So in different industries like energy, yachting also, which was quite interesting. It's a niche, actually, I would say, because it's about building boats, but for private customers, basically. And then telecommunication, but also automotive. So I worked for a company called TRW at that time, that was ZF, and was working mainly for Ferrari, Maserati, also on these projects. And why I started to volunteer for PMI is because I really want to give back to the profession. So after the certification, the PMP, I decided to apply at that time for the validation in the Italian language. So a little bit like Alejandra for Spanish, I did it for Italian. It was 5th edition, then I participated to 6th edition and to 7th edition. And when it came out, the possibility to contribute to the English version, I basically give it a try, with the fact that there were so many applicants, and then the shortlist was also as well so long. We went through some interviews, and actually I said, okay, let's see. I mean, if they will, call me back, how it will go, what will be the outcome. And I have to say that when we first met, then as a core team, I can only let's say second the idea of how much diverse this team was, because to be honest, I was pretty much surprised, and I was really curious, because I said to me, hey, I'm really curious to see how this is going to work, this whole thing. It was so diverse, so different backgrounds from different industries, different countries, different ways of working. And of course, the main challenge is that you have to do a standard and a guide that basically is almost valid in every industry, and where all the things that are there, or most of them, are relevant for all the industries. So this was really, I think the challenge. And at the beginning, I really asked myself, okay, how is this whole going to work? And I think that it was really amazing to see how such a team of professionals that I profoundly respect, to be honest, were able, even though being so highly professionals, so highly proficient, to really strive to find a solution and find a way forward. So there were no, prima donna, or no people like that, because sometimes you can also find, this kind of personality that are very proficient, excellent professionals, but really go for their own ideas and only for that one. And in this case, I think that there was always the common goal to find a way forward and to try to find the best one for the whole community.
Yeah, indeed. Even with Rusbe and Jesse, we talked about how sometimes you guys had differences in your opinions. They called them conflicts. I call them differences, different opinions. And it was such an interesting session. In the previous two sessions, we prepared a small presentation just to guide the discussion through, to keep people, following, through, and stay focused with us. We wanted in this live, we have also prepared this presentation. We wanted to talk about what's different now, when it comes to stakeholder management, scope management, and resource management. Okay, so there are definitely some logics, some way of thinking behind, the different mappings and changes that took place in the PMBOK 8, at least compared to the PMBOK 6, because I think for most of the community, the PMBOK 6 still remained a reference for at least the process tables, the mapping. Okay, do you see my screen, everyone? Alejandra and
Yes.
Laura?
Yes,
All
we're looking at it.
All right. So we've touched on value, system for value creation. We've touched on governance before. We've touched on the overall changes. Of course, we wanted to deep dive into the process mapping table. I call it now just the mapping table, okay, of the mapping table of the performance domains to the focus areas. This is how it's officially called in the PMBOK 8. For a person, for example, a person like me, and there are many people like Daniel, for example. Daniel has been practicing project management for over 20 years. A lot of our audience, by the way, are really like those, old project managers like myself, like Daniel, like you ladies. We like, a lot of these people who are watching our podcast, they started with PMBOK 3, PMBOK 2, PMBOK 1, PMBOK 4, PMBOK 5. So they grew, they grew up, or they grew with the process table, okay, the process groups table. People who joined project management recently or discovered PMI recently the past 4 years, yes, probably they had training where they saw the process tables from PMBOK 6, but they were more into PMBOK 7 and the changes PMBOK 7 brought. But now we're kind of back, not really to how we used to be in PMBOK 6, but rather it's an upgrade, a very nice upgrade from PMBOK 6 to PMBOK 8, taking the best practices, anything that was appreciated by the audience from the PMBOK 7, and of course bringing in additional updates, like from the industry trends, like AI, like hybrid project management, more focus on that, like more focus on value, etc. And now we have this PMBOK 8. Now, if we want to start with talking about the stakeholders performance domain, okay, I think there are a few questions, and we will have them here, but I probably would put this part of the mapping table in front of the audience. Alejandra, before we deep dive into the different questions, how would you describe the difference, in the stakeholders performance domain in PMBOK 8 compared to the previous versions?
Okay. I think that for this time in moment, since we are focusing on value, I have a phrase that I usually use, that is that we do projects with people, for people, to help people. So you have always persons involved. So for me, the stakeholder performance domain is one of the most important performance domains, because you need to make sure that you are delivering value to these people that are related to your project, or that somehow are going to be related or affected in a positive or a negative way by your project. Because I have worked in some construction projects that people have not been affected positively, maybe, during the construction process, during the delivery. There are a lot of things around projects. So I feel that this new performance domain connects the primary skill that you need as a project manager, because I see communication as a primary skill that you need, with the value or the people that you're delivering the value. So this connection made between these two, areas of work or disciplines has made like a merging in letting project managers understand that if you're going to talk about stakeholders, you need to think about how you communicate with them. Because if you're not communicating effectively with the primary goal, or the primary group of people you're delivering the value to, you're not going to have a successful project. So that is a little bit of the heart behind this connection of these two that were in some versions before separate. That is the mindset that is behind that. So and I want to Laura to please give us more insights about this.
I have a question to Laura, actually. Laura, thank you, Alejandra. Laura, you see, in the previous versions of the PMBOK, we had stakeholders as a standalone knowledge area. And then we had communications as a standalone knowledge area. And then they were, mixed together and then put back as separate again. And now in this PMBOK 8, again, we have, now we have the communication mixed up with the stakeholders. And I understand Alejandra's, clarification, and probably many people also know that, yes, project management is, big part of it is about people, dealing with people, communicating with people, interacting with people. However, why was communication put back again into stakeholders performance domain, even though communication is not about stakeholders only. We also communicate with other people, like for example, the project team itself.
I think that we have to take into consideration, so make somehow a step back, no? Because as co-development team, we were basically developing the PMBOK 8. And you can see here, of course, there is actually stakeholder domain that is put together somehow with communication. That's very true. On the other hand, let's look also, for instance, at the MORE model, no, that has been recently introduced by PMI.
Yeah,
that's all about, I would say, elevating. This is, of course, my own opinion, so I'm not speaking on behalf of PMI, but it's a way of elevating somehow the profession, because you need basically a skill set that is a skill set where you are able basically to communicate also with the C-suite. So you need to manage perceptions. So it's stakeholder management is something that includes, of course, communication, but it's not only the only aspect. So you need to be able to really deal with stakeholders that are at C-suite level, and you need to go beyond the excellence of project management skills and activities. So that's actually a step forward where you need to develop even more skills. And the stakeholder management as such, we called it actually engagement, of course, because it means even a step forward, a step beyond the management. You need somehow to develop also the skills, and you need to develop the strategy on how you want to engage the stakeholders. Then, of course, it can come the communication as well. This is a part, and it is a substantial part, I would say. But before, you need to develop a strategy. Just to give an example, let's think at a stakeholder that is not actually, that you know when you have identified that probably will be somehow reluctant, yeah, will not be participating for different reasons. You need, first of all, to develop some strategies regarding how you will engage. And this does not mean only communication. But of course, you have also to think, coming back also to your question, why this communication has been binded to stakeholders. It has been binded to stakeholders, in my personal opinion, because if you look also in the publication at who are identified as stakeholders, you find really a very, very wide variety of people, because you find the stakeholders that you have on the steerco, no? If you work predictive, let's assume. Then you find the team members. You find basically the commercial partners, so the vendors. You find the sponsor. If you look at the publication, there is also some special mention to the sponsor and to what are the activities, the special activities that the sponsor does, in terms of project charter and also other things like securing resources, and there's the whole list. So it's really, and of course the project team, they are stakeholders as well. So yes, that's very true that you communicate also with the team. But if you look at large, actually also the project team is part of the, let's say, stakeholder group and stakeholder community. So I would say that two important aspects. First one is this realizing that there's the need to elevate the profession, so to be able really to communicate also to high-level stakeholders and to develop skills with that. And the other thing is that the stakeholder group is very well refurbished with many kind of categories, basically, because almost everybody who's working at the project or has a stake on it, as well as all other kind of stakeholders that we just mentioned.
So okay, so when communicate, okay, it makes big deal of sense. Like dealing with stakeholders a lot, about engaging them, communicating with them, understanding their needs, responding to their needs, understanding, why are they dissatisfied with certain deliverables, comparing our deliverable, like the project team's deliverables, to what they expected, looking into the gap of misunderstanding, and all of that, should be governed, guided, with communication. Absolutely, yes. Since ages, we were always told that actually the largest stakeholder group includes the project team. So project team are theoretically also stakeholders. That's right. Even though in practice and even in the PMP exam, we tend to differentiate between stakeholders and project team. And so this could be probably part of the answer to everyone wondering, is communication now only related to stakeholders? No, it is not. It's actually, the core, skill of every project manager. Okay. And definitely there is a lot of communication with the team members. It's just that now it's tied clearly to stakeholders. And I don't know, Laura, really, and Alejandra, if this, tying stakeholders and communication together, is it going to stop here, in this current version, and going forward, we'll keep it this way, or will it be separate again, maybe in the future? I don't know. Have you ever discussed this together, like as a team?
I the process for the creation of the standard is independent teams every time. So I think we're not,
Yeah.
we cannot tell you what is going to happen in the future,
Yes, I know.
because it's going to be a different team.
I
But
know.
there is something that I would like to add on to have a little bit more of to understand a little bit better the connection. In previous versions and the way that we taught it in universities, we always taught stakeholders as the external persons that we were communicate, like everyone external from the project, you're looking that as a stakeholder. But I feel that in this standard, we are thinking about stakeholders is every person that is related to the project. So that gives us a new perspective in thinking about, is our team engaged? Is our internal people engaged? Because we're looking them as stakeholders too. We're not isolating or separating the team or the leader is responsible for the engagement. It's like we're all stakeholders and we
Right.
are all responsible for this engagement, for this adding value, and that has a very beautiful connection with the principles and the leadership principles that we have in the standard too. So that is something else that I wanted to add, because when I was teaching like the previous versions, we usually separated them, and that separation makes people think sometimes that only the leader is responsible for the engagement. But it's not true. Like everyone is also responsible, has a little bit of responsibility in that engagement. And even the stakeholders in the committees, in the C-suite, those people are also responsible in coming back to us, and being engaged with our project. And because we're in the end, we're all adding value together. So I think that this perspective of understanding and looking us as one whole team, one whole team that is adding value, one whole group of stakeholders adding value together, gives us all responsibility to work together for that value.
Right. Right. Daniel, as a project management expert yourself, strategist, how, and probably one of the, early people with the PMP certification, how do you see now this change from your point of view here? Putting the communication, again, tied to stakeholders, based on what Alejandra and Laura have explained. How do you see that? And I know that you're a person who's very, very pushy towards a human-centered project leadership way of working.
Yeah. No, they couldn't have. I cannot say any better how they said it. That's exactly how I feel and how I've been managing my projects for at least the last decade and a half. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Right, the first instance that I'm assigned or even considered for a project, some of the things I start working on are this exactly, and really trying to build out the full picture, not trying to slice and dice people into different categories. Although for the work effort, but not as you know, they're all stakeholders. The project team, everyone that this project touches, affects, is affected by, should be considered a stakeholder. And of course, we need to develop the right methodology depending on the environments, up, down, stakeholder, sponsor, C-suite. And yeah, again, this is the best version of the PMBOK that I've seen. I started on 4, and this brings together how, again, myself and most of the people I work with in the New York City area have been managing projects already and looking at it like this. This really brings the best of both of those worlds. I think this was a really great addition, how it kind of collapsed both of those things into this, and just puts it in the perspective that I think most project managers have already seen it in.
Okay, all right, thanks. If I may ask you, Laura, if you don't mind, please. Now, from the PMBOK 8, how people would understand the connection between identifying value, the value that should be delivered from the project, and engaging the stakeholders, working with the stakeholders, compared to the previous version, or actually the current version, you know, the PMBOK 7 and 6 with the current PMP exam. Are there any additions? Are there any new techniques? Is there any steps forward in, you know, really getting closer to stakeholders in order to be able to identify the value they need? Has there any improvements compared to the current or old version?
I think that one aspect that you will find quite frequently mentioned is this giving and receiving feedback. Yeah, so it's something that is some kind of life motif, and you find it also in stakeholders, but you find it, of course, also in the other domains and in the guide itself. Just to enhance how much important is to get the feedback. And I would say how much the feedback itself is important, getting the feedback. So, and also you may see in different domains that every time that you have like some process descriptions, there is always, you know, some indication regarding predictive, but you have also indications regarding how it would work, you know, for adaptive ways of working, or also for hybrid. So, and in this sense, I think that this is quite related to feedback, no? Because of course, I mean, with the adaptive way of working, there is feedback that's much more frequent. But if you want really to have the focus on value, it's important to get frequently feedback as much as possible, to get it, and in my opinion also to give it, because as a project manager you need also to make present what you need also in order to work well, and to say, okay, hey, if these things do not happen, or typically it can be like getting resources, the things will not then happen, and you will not actually get your value. And I think that the really the distinction in the seniority of the project manager comes also exactly in these aspects. So in saying, of course, asking what the stakeholder needs, what is the value that is expected, trying to understand the perception in the meanwhile throughout the whole project, but at the same time also saying, hey, in order to really deliver your value, this and this is something that we need, that I need as project manager together with the team. Right. So without hiding, you know, or without like letting the things go, because in this way you are not proactive, you know, and you are not actually aiming then for the value and for delivering the right thing.
Thanks, Alejandra. Before we move on to talk about scope management, scope performance domain, actually, I wanted to ask you if you could share, like, because I know you guys, when you gathered the core team, you know, to work on this PMBOK 8, everyone was bringing their own experience, and you have different backgrounds, different experiences, and you try to make this as practical as possible, because in the previous versions, and people said that this book, the PMBOK in general, is so theoretical, sometimes they struggle, to apply what's in the book on the real projects, like real life. Now, you probably guys have discussed this, and I'm sure that you have discussed this, whether it's related to stakeholders, teams, planning, whatever, different focus areas, etc. In relation to stakeholders, what one or two tips you would want to give to people to make this book becomes practical to them in their project management work?
Okay. I usually recommend to break down things into little pieces, because if you're trying to do everything at the same time, it's going to be overwhelming. So right now, if you're not implementing some of these tools in your project, I would recommend to start with one, like one new tool that you want to bring to your team and try out how it's working. So, for example, one of the things that I have learned and that I have lived throughout these years of experience is that growing as a leader and growing in your self-awareness and self-knowledge of yourself helps you a lot in understanding how to communicate better and how to engage people better. Because every time you are true with what you really are, you are mirroring that into other people. So whenever you and I might ask you back, how do you relate with someone that is being vulnerable versus someone that is using a mask in your project? Or which person gives you more confidence to work with? A person that is always striving to be perfect and thinking that is perfect, or someone that sometimes says like, okay, I messed up, I'm sorry, we can start over. So I think that one of the things that people or project managers could start doing is working on that, working on your soft skills, on your leadership skills, on your relationship intelligence, learning abilities that help you become a better communicator too. Because the biggest trouble when I have some experience in relationship intelligence, and we think about conflict in a very interesting way. We think about conflict in something that is an opposition that became personal to you. And when something comes personal to you, when you have something that is bothering you from your past, from previous projects, and from things you have in yourself. So when you're aware of the way you are perceiving communication, and Laura was talking a little bit about feedback, the way you receive feedback is directly related with the way that you know yourself and the way that you live things. So maybe your team leader is giving you the feedback in the best way possible with the sandwich technique, the good thing, then the feedback, and then the good thing at the end. And it's giving you a great feedback, but you're receiving it badly because you're in a bad position, you're in a bad moment. So I would recommend first, relationship intelligence, grow in your personal skills. And second, work in your communication skills. And one practice that I do a lot is self-reflection, like taking some moments apart into thinking things. And I think that many people say that I don't have time for that. But when I work with companies, I tell them you don't prioritize the time, because the time is there. You just have to put it in the top of the list and make sure that you do it because it's important to you. So the first 5 minutes of your time that you take to reflect, to think, and to grow as a person is going to give you the 90% of your day to thrive and to do things better. Those are like some practical things that I do in my practice, in my real life, and that I would recommend for others to think about.
Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you for this. Yeah, people needed this, because many people who are really great project management practitioners, but I heard this a lot from people, like, how to put really this in practice, because some people think that when the PMBOK was written, it was written in calm conditions, in easy conditions, people sitting and writing it, even though those people who wrote the PMBOK, they are actually project management practitioners, and they have tried, to collect feedback from people from all over the world in order really to take that, their needs and their views into consideration. When we talk about stakeholders, you mentioned guys like, sponsor, like, client, users, external stakeholders, internal stakeholders. All of those stakeholders can help us, collect the scope requirements, like or correct the requirements, or to be able then to define the scope itself. This is why I wanted to move from stakeholders to scope. But before that, there is something quite different. Let's say scope, domain, and quality were merged, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. However, it's still called scope. So, Laura or Alejandra, any one of you ladies, why was quality merged into scope, but still we call it scope only, not scope and quality?
Okay, I can just start, and then Alejandra complement me. Actually, you're right. Basically, the name of the domain, of course, is scope. There is also some kind of formal reason that basically the name of each domain should be actually one. Yeah. So you should have actually one noun. So if you call like a domain, it's the scope domain, the schedule domain. So this is actually some kind of consistency and coherency throughout the whole publication. On the other hand, I think that there's also a more profound reflection to have here, because of course quality is something that permeates all the aspects of the project. So it's not only related to one specific thing, and this is also the reason why we have a specific principle that's related to quality. And one of the rationale that's behind also the PMBOK is that we tried with this edition to avoid as much as possible some overlaps. So basically, it's not like that you have, for instance, for risk, one domain and then one principle. So in this case, you have actually quality. We affirm how much important quality is, and also the fact that it goes throughout all the aspects of the projects and all the areas on which you have to work on. And this is why it is a principle. On the other hand, if you look, of course, in this domain, you find some elements of quality, and this is pretty much true, especially in the inputs and outputs. So basically, the answer is quality is very important, but it goes throughout the whole aspect, not only linked to one domain. And of course, as it is somehow binded also to scope, basically in the processes you find the elements of the quality inside, even though the name of the domain actually remains the scope performance domain. And
Alejandra, is this the reason we don't see any process in here that is directly tied to quality? Like we see plan scope management, elicit and analyze requirements, define scope, develop scope structure. That's in the planning, and then in the monitoring controlling, we have monitor, control scope, validate scope, but not a single process that mentions quality. Is it because what Laura said is actually detailed, inside, let's say, the chapter itself, besides it's being covered in the principles?
Yes, I have a little bit to add there. It's a inside story.
Okay.
This conversation about scope was started from Mike. You had Mike before.
Yeah.
So we started a conversation about this, and it was really interesting for project managers in our audience to understand. Scope, we are looking at scope and we are looking at quality. Quality is an attribute, just like communication is a skill you need to manage stakeholders. Quality is the attribute that you need to deliver value. And what is the primary function of scope and defining scope? Delivering value. So that is why first is embedded throughout the standard as a principle, because we want to make sure that project managers are thinking about that. And in the project management mindset, you think about quality as integral part of the whole project management profession. And then you can see another process about quality also in the governance performance domain. So and the other thing is that many organizations, remember that whenever we build something that needs to be a standard, the primary premise that you have there is that it has to be applicable for all industries, for all projects, for around the world. So there are some organizations that give a higher importance and a higher specification and personalization and into quality. Like there are other organizations that are specifically taking care of quality assurance, of quality principles. So we want to make sure that project managers know about that, but they don't necessarily need to be experts in quality. They will have someone to be an expert in quality, but they want to think about quality as an attribute that needs to be taken care in order to add value in your projects. So that is a little bit of the rationale behind having this and behind having this connection. And why did we call it scope and not quality? Because in project management, scope is an important performance domain, an important attribute that you need to make sure that is done. Is the requirements part, is where you define what the value that you are going to add. It's what gives you the big picture of what you're going to deliver. But quality is an attribute of it, is something that complements it, and is something that you need to be sure that you take care of, but you don't have to manage it, or you don't have to be a specific expert in managing, quality issues. So that is the, and if you need it for your project, there is some content that leads you into think about this, and then look for the expert that is going to bring this. This is similar to what happened with procurement. I know that this is not part of our topic in this session, but it's similar to what happened with procurement. Some projects do not need specific rules or specific information about procurement. That is one of the primary reasons, because that's why we don't have them in the performance domains as a part of the performance domains as it was before. So I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did.
Yeah. But that brings me to another question, Alejandra.
Yes.
If you don't mind, or Laura. Okay, let me say this straightforward. Before PMBOK 7, most project management practitioners considered quality as a process-centered practice, not to say domain or knowledge area. Let's say practice. It's a process-centered. We take the same quality management process and we apply it throughout all the projects, almost. Okay, almost. Let me say almost. Now, when PMBOK 7 came, we shifted the focus, or the view, how we view quality, to become more of a customer-centric. So, each customer, when we work on their project, we give them the level of quality they need, because it's customer-centric rather than process-centric. So it's not this, we're not applying the same quality management process, in all projects. No, we will, customize or tailor quality up to the customer needs or project needs. How is it in PMBOK 8? Is it more process-centered, customer-centered, different thing-centered?
It's value-centric. Like PMBOK 8 is value-centric. And it's focused on delivering value and having the tools that you need to deliver value. So you need to think about some things in the beginning, and that is the principles and the mindset behind what a project manager needs to be thinking every time he makes a decision about the project. He needs to be thinking about this project management mindset. And then you have the domains, that the domains for me are like the practical tools, or the practical or the execution arm that you have to execute those principles and to give a life to those principles. So if you're thinking about, for example, quality, you use scope to deliver quality and to assure quality and to make sure that you're delivering value and that you have a focus on value, that you are being an intentional leader. So you have this mindset that is everything that guides you as a project manager to deliver the work, and you have the performance domains that help you deliver or execute the actual work. So that is the way that I understand it.
Laura, we noticed that in this current version, PMBOK 8, value seems to be the most dominant, aspect of almost everything. Like everything now is turning around. The whole system is turning around, defining value, creating value, delivering value, and it makes much like big sense. Really, we've been waiting for this for a long time. So can we dare to say that the entire PMBOK 8 is really based on this? So all performance domains, all the work, or the whole process of delivering the project from beginning to end, everything should be turning around really that defined value, creating it and delivering it.
I think that actually it's pretty much linked also to to project success, basically. No, so project success now is actually defined, based on the value that you deliver, and of course all the things that we do, the project management practices that we do, should really be linked to the value that we deliver, and also to how this value is perceived. Because I think it's like two levels. No, you have the ground level, which is the excellent in project management practices as such, and then also how you are able actually to have the value that you deliver to be perceived by your stakeholders. So this is actually the two components. So what you deliver, but also how then you deliver and how this is perceived. So I would say yes, this is actually value focused, and value centric.
Okay. We noticed an important change, something we used to a lot on almost in all the previous versions. WBS. We don't see the word WBS anymore in that mapping table. We see now develop a scope structure rather than develop the WBS. Is now develop the scope structure. Okay, why was the names changed? Like, is the scope structure like broader? It includes WBS and other items or elements, or is there another reason?
I want to take on this one, and then Laura, you can add on some more. One of the biggest things that we had in mind throughout the time that we were delivering this project is that we needed to make sure that the terms that we were using and the names that we were using were applicable for like basically everything around project management. So there was a big discussion, even though I look at the WBS as a tool that an agilist can use, and maybe he's going to call it something else. There was like a bias in the term. So there was something happening there that could not make some people that had another way of thinking to align this and to think about this as a tool that was applicable to them too. So I feel that by changing the name into develop a scope structure, you open up the term into making sure that whatever structure you're using, you need to make sure that you develop a structure to look at your scope. So if it's called a Kanban board, if it's called a to-do list, if it's called a WBS, if it's called whatever you wanted to call it, you need to make sure that you have something that is giving you the overview of how the scope is going to deliver the value. It's easier to make connections also to other graphics, into connecting with value stream, connecting with business requirements, connecting, so I think that one of the biggest values that we were talking in the beginning too, and the differentiators of this team is that we had a very global team. So I remember we were writing with Laura one part of the principles part, and we had a conversation, a very interesting conversation in how to choose a specific term. And she was translating it to Italian and I was translating it to Spanish, because we wanted to make sure that the term that we were using was including all cultures, was including maybe not all cultures, because that maybe it's not going to be possible, but the majority of the cultures. and the majority of the project managers around the world would be related to this. So I feel that that is one of the things that made us name it that way, like make sure that it is a term that is globally accepted, that is easy to translate to other languages. It's easier to understand to other cultures and to other project managers, to people that do projects in a different way, have a different way of working.
Okay. All right. Laura, do you want to add anything to what Alejandra said?
Mm, yes, I would like to add also, just to complement that, there was some big intention and big effort to make basically the publication and the book readable. Yeah, readable, something that's easy to read, and that's also where there is some kind of language that is understandable, where there are no biases, or at least they are limited as much as possible. And for instance, WBS could have been something that for somebody could have been perceived more as a part of the predictive world. And if you look also in all the different processes, there is always mention to the different ways of working. Yeah, really to make them inclusive for all the kind of projects. And also, as Alejandra mentioned, this kind of evaluations regarding different languages, and taking into account the needs also of the people that are, non-English mother tongue. If you look also like at the definition of of project, one of the quite interesting discussions that we had was the former word that was used, that was endeavor. Because for somebody it was something that sounded a little bit strange for a non-English mother tongue, and therefore actually we were looking and we had some brainstorming. So we really try to take into consideration the different communities of practitioners, and not only the perfect English mother tongue speakers.
Yeah, it makes sense now. I think a lot of people now manage to understand why we said scope structure rather than WBS, because it's more general. It can fit with different project management approaches and methodologies. There was an interesting question some people raised, and this question is about the flexibility of the scope. See, when we were, depending a lot on PMBOK 6 and previously PMBOK 5, everyone almost knew that it was mostly about predictive project management, even though PMI tried to, add few terminologies from Agile in PMBOK 6, a little less in PMBOK 5. However, it was mostly about predictive approaches, more like, defining the scope entirely, baselining it and at the end of the planning phase before moving on to execution. Now, the question people have, is there going to be any flexibility in managing the scope, with the PMBOK 8? Because, with the PMBOK 7, it was mostly about being more flexible in terms of scope, especially in the adaptive project management approaches. But now people think that since let's say, the process table is back, so some people are asking, are we back to more like, baselines, scope baseline, fixing the scope, or are we going to still talk about flexibility in the scope?
Yeah, go, Laura.
Yeah. Yes, please. Then complement me. I think that basically it's a point of the project manager having the responsibility also to make the evaluation. What is the best approach? So what is the best approach for the delivery? And this is actually in the regime of the project manager. Then, of course, based on the ways of working that is selected, there could be different approaches, and there could be also, of course, with the adaptive world, more flexibility. But the fact that we have actually the processes, this does not mean that you do not have flexibility, or that you do not work in adaptive. Actually, in all the processes you have, every time that some kind of the script, most of the processes, every time there's the description of how you work with predictive, how you work with adaptive, how you work with hybrid, and also in every domain you have the examples. So basically, if you are working on adaptive, of course you still have, let's say, the flexibility, yeah. And also for this this like develop scope structure, of course there is some mention inside that regarding how you work, let's say, with the adaptive way, and the fact that basically the VWBS cannot be so much perceived like the tool in the adaptive, and that actually you work in a different way. You work more with the backlog, with epics, user stories. So there is some sort of flexibility in interpreting this. And Alejandra, you want to complement in that?
Yes, I definitely agree with you, and I wanted to give an example of what scope and what delivering value should look like. When I started off a university studying architecture, I worked in a construction company, and we designed houses for families, right? So one of the biggest qualities that I learned working with customers directly was to have in mind flexibility and adaptability as a core skill of my work. Even though in construction, we know that every change beyond the design phase, it's going to have a cost implication that is much bigger than if you treat it when you're designing or when you're working your plans. It's important to make sure that you deliver the value to that family, because that family is going to live in that house maybe for the rest of their lives. So I think that one of the mindsets that we need to think about as project managers is that even though you are following a process predictively, definite that is already defined, you need to think about flexibility and adaptability as part of your process to be sure to deliver the value that you need to deliver. Because in the end, if you for example, in this example that I'm giving you of construction, if I give my customer a house, maybe they're growing their family and they need 3 rooms instead of 2, but during the process I didn't have the flexibility to make that change of scope. What is going to happen? That I delivered the house, I delivered the product the way it was designed, but I didn't give the value, and for it, and because of that project is not going to be successful, because that family is going to need that extra room that I didn't plan for. So even though if you have a predictive mind or a predictive way of working, you need to take into account the value and the success, and how is that project going to be really successful in the end. Because if you're just making products just to deliver something, you're not really adding the value, and that project is not really successful. So in terms of flexibility, yes, you need to have scope flexibility, and that is why we have the different ways of working. For example, in agile way of working, you have iterations, and within that iteration the scope is fixed. In Scrum, you cannot change the scope during the 2 weeks that you're working, on the 1 week that you're working, so that you have no flexibility there. But you have a small iteration that gives you the flexibility to be sure that you're adding the value that you need. So in predictive way of working, we need to start thinking about this flexibility and adaptability. And I think that this new way of looking at project management is giving us the tip, or is giving us the tools that we need to think about the next generation of project managers, the next gen of people, how we need to be thinking, how we need to be delivering the value. So whenever you're thinking about scope, you need to start thinking about, what is the value that I'm delivering? Is this project going to be really successful because of the value that I'm delivering, not because that I finish on time in schedule and with whatever I wrote in the beginning. So, and this this gives up another conversation and another question that is about the scope creep, because there is a phrase in the in the guide that was highly critiqued that it was exceeding the value, or
Yeah.
exceeding expectations, and that is what value is about. You need to anticipate to the need of someone. And whenever we see third countries development, for example, urbanism and city planning, you see that those people were not thinking about value delivery because they were making streets, for the amount of cars that they had in that moment. But you see first world countries that they think about that value. So that is the mindset that we want to give to the next generation of project managers, that you need to deliver some other skills, some other ways of thinking, ways of working that will ensure that you're prepared for what is coming in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah, just the last question about scope before we move the next performance domain, which is as usual, no process in executing for the scope. 4 processes in planning, 2 processes in monitoring, controlling, and that's because I think executing for the scope is already covered by the work that is being created, right? In the governance, which used to be to integration in the past. Alejandra or Laura. Like we have no, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. I said, before, just it was a small question. There are no processes as usual, in the executing focus area for the scope because it's already covered by, developing the work itself, doing the work itself, right?
Yes.
Yes,
In the
Right.
governance domain, you already have the execution of whatever you're building. So
Yeah, exactly.
so you need to be taking care of, the planning part, and then making sure that you're delivering whatever you need to execute.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure, as in the previous versions. All right. So, we're going to touch on this last performance domain for this session because we want to take, I don't know, Daniel, if you would be in charge, as usual, of picking the questions, from the audience. So let's
Yes,
move on
there's
to
3 or
the.
4 questions in here, but I definitely, as soon as we're done with this, I'll grab the questions.
Yeah. No worries. Thanks, man. So we move on to the resource performance domain. Now, first question, Laura, really, just to make it clear once for all. When we say resources, do we mean human resources, non-human resources, or actually both? I think I know the answer.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. We mean actually both. Yeah,
Yeah,
so we mean
exactly.
actually the human resources, we mean the physical resources, we mean also the virtual resources. So we mean basically everything, all kind of resources.
So, is there anything that has changed in particular in this performance domain, resource performance domain, compared to the previous versions? Any clear change? Something like you see it and you spot it right on and say, that's a change.
Well, I think there are some things that, in my opinion, are even more echoed and enhanced, let's say, in comparison with before. So, for instance, of course, as we already mentioned, this focus on delivering the value.
Yeah.
So that's actually really the one of the main aspects, in my opinion. Then also this highlighting always also the adaptive way of working, and the fact that, for instance, in the resources you have as a project manager always to take into account the leveling, so also the kind of understanding in every moment also the shortages, also the surpluses, in order to be able then to level it. And I would say that there is quite an interesting part related as well to tailoring. So
Right.
with some examples you have. So I think that these are the some kind of things and areas that, in my opinion, are even more highlighted than the former versions.
Right. I have an important question, Alejandra, please. Some people who are, let's call them the agilists, people who work a lot with agile approaches, they are surprised to see acquire resources happen in the executing, because for them sometimes when they start a project with an agile approach, actually they start working on they start developing, creating the user stories or the increments or the whatever it is the scope immediately from the start of the project. They just start developing immediately. There is no even an initiation or planning phase. But when they see this mapping table, they say, okay, I need to have initiation, then planning, then I can start, acquiring the team and executing. And that doesn't, work with the agile approach. How would you respond to this?
Uh, I want to share something that we need to keep in mind. And one thing that we need to keep in mind is that this is not a fixed process. Like you don't have to do things step by step because as a project manager, you need to understand which tools and which processes are going to add value to your project. If you try to implement the whole standard in order the way that is fixed in the diagrams, you're going to go crazy. So I feel the answer for me, or the answer that I would give to a person that works with Agile, is you're acquiring resources at the beginning of the project because that is the way that you work, and that doesn't matter. Well, if it's in the standard placed on executing, you started executing your project in a different way of working, in which a predictive mindset would do, or in which a hybrid mindset would do. So if you take into account the process, I would go with execute the process instead of looking at the order that you're going to execute the process. That is like the first thing that I would say to that person. Like if your way of working needs to acquire resources at the same time that you are planning, or that you are executing resources, or estimating resources, it's fine. You do those simultaneously, because in the time that you are estimating resources, you can start acquiring, and then you can start mixing them up. So I would say that this is not something that you need to take like step by step, because that takes us back to the predictive way of thinking and the predictive way of doing stuff. I think that as project managers, and with this new version, we need to look at it as a guide, as a guide that gives you the things that you need to think about when you're executing projects, and using them at your rhythm, at your time, with your cultural implications, with your organizational implications. But maybe for some organizations it's important to do them in a different way, or in a different order, I mean. Yeah, so that is what my answer would be.
Thank you, Laura. Is there any relationship between the resource performance domain and there is a particular process in governance about resourcing, defining resourcing strategy? Are they tied together? Is there a relationship between them?
Uh, yes, I mean, but this is actually what we are talking is really what we are talking here in this domain is really regarding acquiring resources, right? So of all kind of ways, and of course there is some kind of link with governance, because in the moment that you need to acquire resources, you need also to have the support of the high level stakeholders to get them. So there is an interlink with the governance domain, of course, and this is one of the aspects, no, and also the main challenges you always have as project manager, to acquire basically the resources. And if you also have at one of the main tasks and responsibilities for the project sponsor, basically there's exactly this one in helping to secure the resources, also at the highest level. So also in terms of moving something in the governance in order to get there.
Yeah, yeah. And I can see, Laura, that now in this version 8, we say lead the team compared to the previous version. So I think it's a quite a change, because before we used to say manage resources, if I'm not mistaken, in the executing focus area. Now it's called lead the team, no more manage resources. And I think that was done after a lot of discussions and a lot of critics that, oh, we don't manage teams. We'd rather, now it's more the focus on this servant leadership or the leadership style itself. So what is the reason for, moving from manage team or develop and manage team? Because we used to have develop and manage team both. Now we have lead the team.
I think it's an enlargement basically of the concept, because it's still, you have of course this activity of developing the team, of managing the team, but in addition to that, you are also basically leading it, and this is related to the fact that you have to motivate the team. So it's somehow also like the shift to engage stakeholders. No, this means as well that you are not managing only the stakeholders. You are really motivating them to fully support your project. And in this case, with the team, is some kind of similar shift, because you are saying leading the team, and by leading the team, this means that you can lead them with different leadership styles. This means also that you have to be flexible in your leadership style and adjusting your leadership style based on the situation. So there's again some kind of different skill set to be that as a project manager you need to develop, because this means that you have to switch from different leadership styles, also the ones that are not so natural for you. And I would say that this kind of shift, is exactly this lead the team, is pretty much linked also to the principle be an accountable leader. No?
Yeah.
And we discussed quite a lot this also with Alejandra, because we worked at that principle together. So Alejandra, if you want to complement or to add, I mean, please feel free.
Yes. I would like to add a little bit here. And I would go a little bit further in terms of leading the team, because leading the team is not just the work of the project manager. Every person that is involved in the project needs to recognize and develop leadership skills. Because, for example, in the agile approaches, you don't have only one person leading. You have a whole team that is leading themselves and leading others too. So when we talk about leading the team in executing, we're talking about enhancing and bringing back, not only doing a follow-up of tasks or following up on the project delivery or following up on specific resource things, but also taking into account the growth of that person. How are you motivating them? How are you helping them to become a better person, a better leader? How you as a project manager are responsible of your own growth and also the growth of your team. So I think that thinking and putting this process there is giving you another idea of how project management of the future needs to be thinking about. You're not going to be just managing something. You're going to be leading. You're going to be adding value. You're going to be developing people. You're going to be elevating people. You're going to be making people to grow with you as the same that you are growing. And in the meantime, while you're helping others grow, you also grow, because as Laura was saying, you learn a lot about your leadership styles, how you need to combine them, how you need to jump from one to the other. And that doesn't mean that you're going to stop being who you are. That means that you understand and recognize that as a leader, as a project manager, you need to have the capability to work as a chameleon. And there was a picture of that Laura and I were discussing, even with Amol worked with us too in that principle, and that is one of the first pictures that we came when we were thinking about how a project manager needs to lead. You need to be a chameleon. You need to act some ways in with your primary stakeholders, with your C-suite, with your team, with so you have to have that flexibility and adaptability as a leader, and that is reflected there in the execution.
Yeah, and we noticed there was such an important change that I think most project management practitioners appreciated, which is the monitor and control resourcing. Before, it used to be called control resources. I think now it makes much more sense to say resourcing, monitoring, control, resourcing itself, like the entire process, rather than say control resourcing, control resources. I think that that change came after taking some feedback from the people, plus what you have concluded as project management practitioners, Laura and Alejandra, right?
Yes, and I think that you already talked about this with Jesse in the first session, but this is one of the standards that had more feedback. The community had a lot of opportunities to give feedback and to learn, and we had a lot of data to base our way of working and developing the content for this standard. So yes, it's part of what the community is talking about, and what we as practitioners and as experts acknowledge that we need to be thinking about the future, because this standard needs to be relevant for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yes. Yeah. Great. All right. So I think we've covered most of it. Just Laura, maybe one last question. This PMBOK 8, honestly, is it more about, besides the value, we talked about value, but is it more about processes or people? I mean, I don't want to even explain my question further. Is it more processes centric? Is it more people centric? Is it both? And of course, all of this is turning around value, but because many people say now that project management is a lot about people, like it's 90% people leadership and less about processes. Is that really true?
I believe you have to find the right balance, yeah, based on the project you have. And because the right balance is, you need to be the achiever, because of course you need to deliver the project. That's one aspect, but it's not the whole aspect. The other aspect is how you deal with relationships, which means, of course, stakeholders. We actually faced it in the before. No, we talked about that. And then, of course, there's with relationships, I intend also how you are able to influence, because that's also at the next level, no? How you are able to help also and to facilitate the decision process, for instance.
Right.
So actually, I think you need to find the right balance for your project, because it's not only about the delivery and what you deliver, but also how you set your relationships, how also after the project, how in which kind of relationship you are, because of course also this kind of giving feedback, no? If you are able to set good relationships with the stakeholder, with your project sponsors, this means that exactly these people will look for you the next time that they have to do an important project. So if you want to have a long time relations where actually you have good feedback from them, you have to take care, of course, of the relationships, and these are very important. On the other hand, you still have to deliver, and that's very important, no? The value that you deliver. So I think good balance between the both one, and of course you have to very well understand what is the environment in which you are moving.
Yeah.
That's actually the good mapping.
Thank you. If you don't mind, Alejandra and Laura, I would put a couple of questions from the audience on the screen, and we try to answer them. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Daniel, which questions would you like me to put on the screen?
There's 2 or 3 good ones. Give me a second. Where is this one?
Okay. Maybe in the meantime, I can put this one. It's quite an interesting one. It's from.
That's the first one I was going to tell you. You just grabbed it.
I know. Go on, please, Daniel. Read it to the ladies, please.
Sure. It says, I have a question. I have managed projects in the traditional way, working in oil and gas industry. So I wonder, I have a two-part question. How would a hybrid model handle change requests that cross value stream boundaries? And then the second part is, what metrics would you use to validate that your scope structure is optimizing both delivery, predictability, and value realization? Ooh, that was a good one. That was a mouthful.
Whoever lady, any one of you wanna take on this, you can take time to reflect on this if you want.
Actually, optimize both delivery
Interesting, yeah.
and value. Well, with that, I can start. Let's say, of course, it's like some kind of brainstorming in the meanwhile. I think that as for metrics, of course, you may have this kind of fixed metrics, no, that you have for your system. So in this case, oil and gas. So probably you will have some technical attributes of the system that you need to deliver, and this will be basically given on the technical characteristics. On the other hand, if you are working in hybrid, and if you want to understand also your value realization, I would really put in the metrics some metrics that are based on the feedback. So on some periodic feedback from the stakeholders to understand how they perceive their value, to understand how satisfied they are with the cooperation, if they would like to work with you again, because this is something that gives you a little bit the perception of how they think that the value is now delivered, if it's delivered, if it's not delivered.
Right. Thank you, Laura. Daniel, probably Alejandra. Daniel, please, if you wanna take this one, it's on the screen as well. Maybe Alejandra can answer it.
Oh no, definitely. I prefer to.
Yeah, can you read it? Can you maybe read the question?
I want to hear from the masters.
Yeah. I mean, if you can read the question, Daniel, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. The love the emphasis on the predictive and anticipating value. It's a space I'm actively building in. Curious from this group. Number one, what's the biggest blocker you see for teams trying to shift from reactive to predictive? Data quality, tooling, organizational structure, and something else as examples. And then the second part of that is, and when teams do get it right, what's the first sign that you usually notice?
I can go with this one. That is what I do in my day to day. Okay, so I think that there is a lot of factors around the blockers or the things that can block the performance or that shift of mindset. But in my experience, the biggest thing is changing the human. There is a study that McKinsey did a few years ago that is called "It's the Manager." So, so that study was based on the seasoning or the real culture within a team is given by the leader. So whenever you have a leader that is giving you a good culture, a good team, or a good set of tools, is going to have a higher probability of executing high performance than a team that has not a very good leader. So from my experience and from my perspective, one of the biggest blockers is look at the leader, look at the manager. What is happening there? How is the team relating with them? How is the team relating between themselves, like the human relations? Once you work with the person and you help the person develop, then you can start working with whatever tool, whatever system, whatever thing you want. And one of the first notices you can perceive the delivery of execution of the delivery of products. One of the first signs that we notice is that people from the outside of our team start looking at us as a very cohesive group. like people around the organization start perceiving the way that we react in meetings, the way that we react to problems, the way that we react to changes. So what the way I would do it is that I would start working with a small group, a pilot group, and start working with them and start showing other people that we can do things if we relate good as a team. So that is the way that I usually implement our organizational change. Whenever we start working with business agility or changing methodologies or building PMO departments or whatever, the first thing that we do is that first we choose the right team to work. We pilot some things, and then we start gaining confidence in the organizational level, and that way it starts rolling down to all the other departments. It's like a virus, you implant the little virus in there and then you spread it out, and you need to make sure that that virus is capable of living throughout the storms, living throughout the other things that are around it, and that is the way that I would work it.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, really, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone watching. Thank you so much, Alejandra and Laura. Really appreciate that. We're perfectly on time. It's exactly 6 p.m. GMT +1. Early morning your time, Alejandra. I think it's around 10:30. No, it should be 11 now.
It's 11, yes.
It's 11, it should be 11. Thank you so much, both of you. There are other few questions from the audience. Feel free, ladies, if you want to get back to them in the comments. I don't want to take longer of your time. Really appreciate this, your time, your insights, your value, the value you have brought to the entire project management community. I want you to be proud of yourselves because you've done a tremendous amount of effort, really. Really enriching the project management practice and profession as well. Thank you so much. This will be memorable for the next 4 to 5 years, as Alejandra said. And I hope longer, really. At least you have graved your names, in the stones now. They are right there. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone watching. Please, next week we will have another interesting session with this core team and another, few other performance domains we will look at. Thank you so much, everyone. We wish you very nice holidays, everyone. And see you next Tuesday on 30th in both another session of the deep dive and the global project management gathering we'll have right after the deep dive session on 30th of December. Everyone's welcome to join. It's going to be an open session, no microphones closed. Everyone can have the chance to share their success story of 2025, their challenges, their perception or view on 2026 in project management or even on the personal level. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, and have a nice rest of the evening. And I'm ending this live stream. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Alejandra.